NASCAR heads back to the heartland for the Hollywood Casino 400. We give you our best bets and DFS tiers tonight for Kansas on the Backroad.
It's a non-points race, but it is a short race. Checkered flag. That's all this
What's up, everybody? This is the Backroad. It's In Between Media's fantasy NASCAR betting show. My name is Elliot Hicks, and with me, the In Between Media founder, CEO, chairman, grand poobah, whatever you want to call him. His name is Seth Woolcock, and tonight, Seth, we're very grateful that you're sacrificing the first NFL night of the season, at least for now, to come and join us to talk a little bit of NASCAR playoffs from Kansas.
Hey, baby, that's why we got DVR, right? You know, we can always watch things back, but we can't ever make up time that's lost here on the back road. So excited to be here with you tonight, Elliot. I talked about it a little bit in a column this week that sometimes, whether you're playing fantasy football, fantasy NASCAR, or just life, that sometimes shit's going to go sideways. We can't always be a winner, but that's just part of it, man. So I'm happy to be here with you tonight, man. I appreciate your time as well. And I appreciate the IBT family as well. We already got Didi here saying hello. Hello, boys. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday to you, Didi. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for joining us. And Elliot, we have a good race, man. I always love Kansas. I think this is the one underrated track, one of my favorites on the slate.
Yeah, Kansas is definitely a fun one. Great that it's in the playoffs. You know, we're far removed from some of those early races a few years ago where the package just prevented some passing. You know?
Yeah.
It's going to be a fun one, but you mentioned things going sideways a little earlier. Unfortunately, for our betting cards, we do have to take a look back in the rear view at the Darlington race from last week. Things did seem to go sideways for quite a few playoff drivers, as it always seems to at the Southern 500 since it's been the playoff opener the last couple of years. Kyle Larson ends up getting the win there. A couple of guys really getting screwed at the end. Denny Hamlin dominated the middle part of the race, had that late issue. Kevin Harvick just this close to making it on pit road just in time when Reddick had his little mess up there. What a fun story it would have been for Harvick or Hamlin to go out there and win. Larson ends up getting the win, locking him into the next round. It was a fun race. You know, our betting cards didn't love it, but it was good to watch, that's for sure.
Forget Hamlin and Harvick. It would have been a fun story for the back row boys, man. Rod and I were hot on the same drivers last week. Hamlin, Truex, Bubba. Bubba, obviously, he got the top 10 for us. I mean, fuck Denny Hamlin's pit crew. Get your shit together. Come on. Like, he was actually very encouraging on his podcast this week. He didn't blame them for what had happened.
Right. I mean, they didn't find any evidence of a loose wheel, so who knows what it was.
Yeah. So we'll leave that as it is. Also, fuck Tyler Reddick. I don't know what's going on there. Like, find the pit road a little bit sooner, buddy. So it was funny, Ellie. I had one NASCAR DFS lineup that in a matter of a little while, it just totally went to shit. At Harvick, at Hamlin, it had fucking Ryan Newman. So man, it was a heartbreaker, and I think a lot of people probably felt that. Rod and I were actually some of the daring ones to fade Kyle Larson, and didn't play out so well.
No, it didn't quite work out. Larson found himself at the front and won the race. And looking at our betting cards here, you know, a lot more red X's than check marks. Of the card that I would have put out, we're working on putting out betting cards that you guys can see on socials right before the race. Of the bets that I picked from afar last week, the only one I got, though, was Larson over Truex in a matchup. You know, I was going to sprinkle a little bit on the Byron and Eric Jones outright. Didn't quite work. Harvick top 5 would have really paid off. McDowell top 10 really didn't. And Ford to win is just such a bargain, you know. Always got to throw a little bit of coin on that. Didn't work this week, but maybe it didn't work last week. Maybe this week it'll be a little better. And Seth, pretty much the same for you. Just 1 or 2 paying off here. And otherwise, you know, if it was the Southern 400, we would have been in great shape. Southern 500, not so much.
Yeah, and you know, that's what comes with betting NASCAR. And I think those variables are something we bake into when we're taking drivers at some longer odds. But yeah, I mean, that's just the way it went last week. And I will say I'm still hot on some of those same drivers this week, man. Like the data is leading me right back to him. So I'm not going to let, getting snake bit once lead me astray. And I think we keep the headlights pointing this time to Kansas here, Elliot.
Yeah, I think honestly the same drivers are going to stay hot. So let's take a look at Kansas in the horizon forecast.
Hey, Michael, it was only 20% chance of rain. I think we got all 20.
So the Kansas Speedway is one of those that we would almost consider one of those cookie cutter mile and a halves. Really good race here in the spring. Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson battling for the win at the end of it. Larson gets in the wall. Hamlin ends up taking the checker flag. But Seth, you have in your notes here, obviously mile and a half, high speed intermediate. It's almost like a mini Michigan and also has a lot of comps of places we've been in 2023, obviously even outside of the first Kansas race.
Yeah, man. I'm really weighing some of these recent high-speed mile and a halves and also Michigan just because this is really just a smaller version of that track. So we're looking back at Charlotte. We're going to look all the way back to Las Vegas and Kansas 1 as well. But those are really the 4 tracks I wanted to focus on coming into this week. I've heard some other ones out there as well, but those are the 4 that I'm focusing on. A couple trends I want to throw out as well, Elliot, and just let me know if you think any of these really matter this week because a whole new can of worms could be open. But Logano leads actives with playoff wins at Kansas. He has 3 of them. Harvick has 2. However, Hamlin leads all actives in race wins for. You look at a lot of the metrics, man. Hamlin just absolutely boat races at this place. Qualifying is going to matter here a lot as well, folks. Winners come from the front row about 26% of the time. They come from the top 5 about 46% of the time. So keep those numbers in mind. Elliot, are you going to be weighing qualifying and people who you expect to finish well on Saturday? About noon, 12:45 is when we're going to get qualifying in practice. Are you looking at that as well?
Yeah, I mean, that was already important to me even before hearing these numbers. But when you have almost half the time, you got to qualify in the top 5 to win here. Definitely makes it super important. Obviously it's a battle for these guys every week. Last week, I had some time on my hands. I watched qualifying for Darlington for, I think, the first time all year. Even I think I watched more of qualifying in Darlington than I did when we were at the track in Pocono watching up qualifying, honestly. I think we might have missed the beginning part of that, maybe finishing up the Frankie Muniz story or something like that. But yeah, and my Ford to win trend, looking at Logano and Harvick being the active win leaders here, obviously some of that is in previous cars, previous generations, previous race packages, things like that. In the next gen, Toyota has been dominant here.
Yes.
Denny Hamlin, obviously, leading the actives in general race wins here. 23-11, this is arguably their best track.
Yes.
We saw the number 45.
Last year.
Yeah, number 45 entry sweeping it last year. Kurt Busch getting his last win, and then Bubba Wallace. So, I mean, you were not too happy with Tyler Reddick. He could be a guy to watch here when we go ahead and rank our tiers here in just a few minutes.
Yeah, I talked about it last week with Tyler Reddick, man. Like, how much do you want to get risky with it? That's him. I mean, it pays off like last week. I don't think a lot of people were playing him because they were scared off from the week before, and it paid off. So, yeah, it's interesting. But Toyota's once again really leading us down that road, man. So, yeah, what do we say? Get a little more specific in the tire tiers?
I think so. Just in terms of the manufacturers, it could be rough for Chevrolet. We've seen Larson run well here before. We've seen Bowman have a few good runs here. But, obviously the Fords have the veteran talent.
They're hot too.
Here. Yeah. So Chevrolet may count their lucky stars. Larson got his win last week because it may not come as easy this week. But I bet you we'll have some of every manufacturer near the top here in our tire tiers. Let's roll. All right, so this week's entry list has the main 36 chartered cars. Some driver updates. Sheldon Creed is going to be racing in a Whelen-sponsored number 78 car for Live Fast Motorsports with BJ McLeod, Matt Tifft over there. Being prepared by Richard Chotis Racing in their shop. A picture leaked on social media this week that also showed the Spire 77 over there in that shop. I know they have a bit of a partnership, but, Ty Dillon's car being in the RCR shop trying to get some extra speed is no surprise to me, honestly.
Clean it up, RCR. That shouldn't be getting leaked out there too. Joe Schmoes like me and you, Elliot, shouldn't have that type of information, but that's the beauty of the internet. How about it?
Yeah, for sure. But hey, I don't want those shop tours taken away. I still got to get into the shops down there in the Carolinas. Rick Roar Racing has Yaley in the 15, Cole Custer in the 51, and Carson Hocevar returns to the legacy number 42 off of was it their best or second best intermediate finish of the season, 17th at Darlington. So this kid has shown some potential in the Cup cars. Obviously, he's had some boneheaded moves in the Truck Series this year, but still alive for a championship over there and getting some deserved opportunities in Cup that will continue based on how well he's been running.
Yeah, man, hats off to Carson. I mean, we talked a little bit about him earlier this season, just for some of the antics he was pulling over there in the Truck Series. And, I think when you have Dale Jr. say to your face, like, hey, grow the fuck up, like, let's drive race cars here, let's not be an asshole, I think it matters. And I think, he talked about that on one of the podcasts over there at Dirty Mo, that was really, a real slap in the face to him. So it's good to see him kind of getting his stuff together. And it's good to have another option here in DFS as well, Elliot, because he's really been a leverage option when he's been in this car.
Yeah, for sure. We'll talk about him a little later. I'm assuming he's not going to pop up in the driver A's. Who are you throwing up here first, Seth?
Yeah, Denny Hamlin, man. 1,100. You're paying up for him, but on Fantrax, he's actually still a little bit cheaper than Martin Truex Jr. And I'll go through some of the more advanced metrics when we get to the betting side of things. But what you need to know here: number one in average finish among active since 2020. 5.7. 5 out of the last 7 races, Denny Hamlin has finished in that top 5. So he's been really good here, man. He's been really, really good. Number 2 in speed rankings at these combined comps that we're looking at. So overall, man, Denny Hamlin's a smash this week. I know it didn't come to fruition, and I lost a lot of money even just on DFS last week, rostering so much Denny, but you can't be afraid to go back to the well here heading to Kansas.
Right, and this is one of those situations where I know even in the Slack chat 6 hours ago, you and Rod were both so bummed about the Denny Hamlin thing, looking back on it. But it's one of those races, it would have been different if there had been a fall off in performance last week, or if something had happened where Denny made a dumb mistake. But just some weird pit crew thing, this is still a work in progress with the next gen. Their pit crew couldn't even figure out if it was a loose wheel or not. I'm sure they figured it out in-house since then. But this is a situation that shouldn't scare you off from Denny Hamlin. And I understand why you went with the 11 instead of the 19 of Martin Truex Jr., even though the 19 has a better speed ranking at the comparable tracks, was the fastest in speed ranking at Michigan, no worse than 4th at any of these comparable tracks this year. And with Truex, it was not a good run at Darlington. I mean,
that's what scares me.
Yeah, that's why I figured you went the 11 over the 19. But very rarely do you have the 19 team have 2 just really dog shit.
True.
Obviously he went without the win all last year, missed the playoffs. Those were extenuating circumstances, and it's not that he ran like shit all year. He was, I think, 4th in the regular season points, just couldn't get in over victory lane. Obviously, he's solved that problem. They won races, and it will not surprise me to see them run back up front. Whatever it was at Darlington, this is not a similar enough track to think this 19 will be down 2 weeks in a row. I fully expect that 19 to be up front.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I think they will bounce back, but just like Denny, a little bit more for the price tag.
Right.
After that, I mean, we got a lot of people in the 10s this week, Elliot. We got Chris Bell right around 10,000, 10.2 for Byron, 10.5 for Larson. It's tough for me to pay those prices for my second or for anyone else that I don't want to have Denny Hamlin in my lineup with. So I'm going to go dip down a little bit. Let's go Bubba Wallace, 9,200. This is a guy just looking at his last 3 races at Kansas, 4th, 1st, and 10th. Bubba Wallace is one of the best at these high-speed intermediates, and I think it's time we start realizing it. And even last week, man, at like Darlington, that was a track we expected him to run pretty well at. And what did he do? He ran pretty well at it. Like, Bubba's suddenly a pretty predictable driver, and it feels really nice, and that's why I want to roster him over someone like his teammate who could have great speed and finish 25th.
Yeah, and with Bubba Wallace, the thing that they have built on this year has been consistency. I've always loved Booty Barker as a crew chief. I think that was the best thing 2311 could have done.
Agreed.
Was bring him in. I don't know if you remember back in the day when we were kids, him being on the Speed Channel, showing us the ins and outs of some of those cars. But it's really good to see him have success and Bubba Wallace have success. And, I mean, you think about his run of the playoffs. There were a lot of tracks where, obviously road courses and the chaos of Daytona and stuff, where we almost would have expected him to just run like garbage, lose his points advantage, and end up really struggling to get in the playoffs if he made it at all. He ran consistently at tracks he was bad at. He kept himself out of the Daytona chaos long enough to get into the playoffs. And he's right next to the bubble again because of the lack of playoff points. But I still think the 23 is going to have the good combination of you have the fire under your ass to run well, but you have the well-temperedness and consistency on the racetrack to run well and warrant a tier A spot. Once again, though, I'll go on the riskier side. I'll pick up his teammate in the 45 and Tyler Reddick.
Oh,
There's a lot of speed in that 45 car. We
there
saw it at
is.
Darlington. He's obviously very streaky, but I know a lot about streaky drivers. It happens to my guy Bowman every single fucking year. So I'm used to it. But the 45 car actually knows how to win races and get in the playoffs, at least this year. But in any case, 6th in the total speed ranking at these tracks this year. 3rd at Charlotte, particularly good run there. And I think that he'll be hungry after leading a lot of laps at Darlington. Obviously he made a mistake in the spin with Newman. He was a little frustrated with Newman after he got caught behind him for a while. Turns out the guy who was battling Denny Hamlin or Kevin Harvick, they didn't win the race either. It didn't really matter. But Reddick, I think, will be another guy to come back motivated to continue to have that speed and run better and end up with a better finish. Well, he was second at Darlington. But anyway, he wants to get in victory lane is my point. And the 45 car's got the speed to do it. Does he have the temperament or the consistency as the 23? I'm not sure.
Hopefully he can find fucking pit road this week. That's all I'll say there, Elliot. Okay, great to have all the Toyotas kind of locked and loaded up the front. I think that's very reasonable. Let's break it up. Let's get a little Ford action in there. Chris Buescher, man. I mean, just look at what this guy is doing. If you've rostered him in any DFS lineups, whether you're playing on DraftKings or Fantrax over the last 2 months, man, like he is not disappointing maybe but one time. I'm going to go through his last 6 races here. 3rd place, 1st place, 7th, 11th, 1st. So that's his last 6 races of the season leading up to this point. He won Michigan. We've said this is a mini Michigan. I expect Chris Buescher to have some speed here and probably lead the Fords once again. So give me that at a great price tag of $8,600. DraftKings, you are continuing to sleep on our guy, Chris Buescher.
Yeah, Buescher is still mega underrated there on DraftKings. He's been one of the best oval drivers the last few weeks. He's not a sexy pick over on the iFantasy race speed charts. 15th total in the series, but that's because it was weaker in the early season.
Yes.
And then on fire later in the season. 26th at Vegas before RFK really found their stride in the speed rankings. 3rd at Michigan when he got the win. So obviously that's going to balance out the average a bit. How can you bet against a 17 car at this point? I mean, just consistency, running up front, more wins than we would have possibly expected Buescher to have in his whole career. He's gotten in the last couple of months, So this 17 car running well. Continuing to run well would be no surprise. Obviously, he's run well enough. And another win at Kansas wouldn't surprise anybody. This guy's almost become a dark horse championship favorite.
I was just about to say, Elliot, we've chatted about it briefly, but right now he's still a great value to win the championship in the futures on Caesars and still a great value to get to the championship for as well. So I would very much consider, especially if you believe in RFK and what they're doing here, at least get invested in the championship for Buescher. That is something I am very much looking forward to laying down on this week. I've been looking at it for a couple weeks now. And after seeing what we saw at Darlington, I'm all in on the 17 moving forward here, Elliot.
Right, and even if you haven't bought into the Buescher train yet, I don't know how anyone out there wouldn't have after seeing what he's done over the summer. But if you haven't bought into the Buescher train, keep in mind that the tracks per rounds actually fare out well to RFK, even if you take out this, late summer surge. I'm not on next week, so I'll say this now. They won Bristol last year. If it's not a good run at Kansas,
yes,
it should buy you away from Bristol for the 17 or the 6 car, who I'm sure we'll talk about later. In terms of my next pick here, I don't love all the Chevrolets this week, but if Chevrolets are going to run up front, I'm expecting the top Hendrick guys. I'll throw William Byron up here in driver A. 3rd in the speed ranking at these sort of tracks. 1st there at Vegas, 2nd at Charlotte. I don't
wasn't
know
great at Kansas though. That's the one question mark with him, I think, right? Like just a little worse at Kansas.
Kansas was his lowest speed ranking at 11th. So with the 24 car, the 5's already got his win. 24, I think, is going to bring the best Hendrick setup. It's just a matter of if Chevrolet is going to be quick enough. And I think we'll know in qualifying. If Byron can get in the top 15 spot, I have faith in him. If we see the Toyotas and Fords dominate qualifying and the Chevys in mid-pack, if there's only, say, one Chevy in the top 10 or the 4 in the top 20, it could be a rough one for them. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I'm going to throw... I want to go to B's. Do you have anyone else for A's that you like, Elliot? I know we should probably show Larson some respect and probably put him in the A's.
That was the only guy I was thinking was Larson in the A's. For again, same things as Byron, other than that he's already got the win and generally runs better at Kansas. But
yeah, Yeah, number 3 total speed ranking for Larson at Kansas earlier this season. Second fastest late in a run as well. As we kind of mentioned, just didn't get it done battling with Denny Hamlin down the stretch there. So I don't think you can go wrong with Larson. We said this last week, but I would just rather pay the 500 extra in salary on DraftKings and get me up to a Denny Hamlin personally. All right, down in the B's.
Yep.
A guy we just don't talk about on this show ever, barely, even though we talk about all 36 drivers every single week. Give me some Ryan Blaney. I really like Ryan Blaney this week. And we talked about how important qualifying is here. Well, the number one average in starting position here, the number one driver is Ryan Blaney at 10.3. So I'm expecting him to run pretty well here. He has some really intriguing advanced metrics. On the total speed rankings was right around 11 or 12, didn't show that speed, but I actually think RFK doing what they've been doing lately, especially on these intermediate tracks, is going to help all of the four. It's going to help Penske, going to help that number 12 car. I really like Ryan Blaney this week. I think he's being really disrespected. He's another guy right in that 8,500 range that I like. So, I mean, if I can start my team out, Denny Hamlin, then dip down Chris Buescher, Ryan Blaney, and then throw a couple darts, like, I'm very happy with that. And I don't think Ryan Blaney is going to be rostered very much at all. He never really is here at these intermediates, Elliot.
Yeah, again, one of those picks that's not super sexy, but I do think that he'll get some of that Ford benefit from RFK. I'm torn between two different guys here. And
throw them both.
All right, so we'll throw them both up. I'll throw the number 20 of Christopher Bell up.
Yeah, good call.
Obviously, the Toyotas are going to be quick, and they're going to be hungry. They were the dominant car early in the Southern 500. Had some pit road mistakes, had some other issues. They just switched over the number 54, Ty Gibbs' pit crew last week. Arguably the best in the garage. In fact, they won that pit crew challenge at the All-Star race and whatever. They're not going to be happy that they didn't perform up to standard. Neither is Bell. So I think that if it's not one of these top 4 Toyotas, Bell will be a guy who probably is going to be lower rostered than those 4. So that could give you some benefit there. And Logano was another guy I was thinking of, another guy, potentially an unsexy pick. He's had more past success here than current success. Neither of these guys are super duper sexy in the speed rankings. Bell 9th in the series at these sort of tracks, but 19th at Michigan. And then Logano's all the way down in 18th. No particularly standout runs there. But they're both guys, Bell's got the Toyota speed. Logano's got the veteran experience. They're both in the playoffs. They both obviously still need to run well to advance to the next round. So they could be, lower rostered in some cases, but potentially higher value, higher potential.
Yeah, I bet Chris Bell heavily here when we were in the spring, and it just didn't work out. But it was nothing he was doing. Again, it kind of came back to that pit crew and some issues he was having there. So yeah, I don't mind Bell. Man, I feel like we almost hit another tier already. Honestly, I'll throw Kevin Harvick up there. Kevin Harvick, he's expensive this week for Kevin Harvick at 9,500. But when you really look at who Kevin Harvick has been lately at this track, 4 top 5s in his last 7 races. This is another opportunity. If Kevin Harvick wants to go out to win this season, this is a chance for him to get this, man. Like when you look at all-time drivers here, he does have 3 wins right behind Denny for the most here. So I think Kevin Harvick cannot be discounted as well.
What about Keselowski for the Beast?
I think yes.
Yeah. Same with RFK. If you're going to put the 17 up, you got to put the 6 up next to him. Or if you're going to put the 6 up, you got to put the 17 up next to him. They run consistently well together. Better lately on the high-speed intermediates here. 5th in speed ranking at Michigan. Can't argue against the 6 here to be in the Bs, but I think you're right. At this point, we're down to the B minuses of the Cs.
Yeah, I think Ross Chastain also belongs in this tier. And we talked about him last week, and I said with Rod, man, that like he's risky. He's kind of in that Tyler Reddick tier to me that I try not to play a lot in DFS this season just because we don't know when he's going to show up with the speed or not. Or like it hasn't even been the accidents lately. It's just he hasn't had speed lately. But when you're looking at it, man, 5th last week at Darlington, and then you go all the way back to Kansas earlier this season, man, like Ross was on one, finished 5th, had 7th total speed ranking that day as well. I think like this is a really good opportunity for Ross to continue to build that cushion up, make sure he's not just making it to the round 12, but the round of 8. So I do like the number 1 car this week. It's a little bit of a value at 9,000. Again, I think I'd rather dip and play Buescher or Blaney, but at 9,000, I can't complain on that price.
Yeah, I mean that's self-explanatory because of you picking Busher and Blaney to, ahead in your tiers here than Chastain. It was neat to see him run well at Darlington, because if he didn't run well at Darlington and if he doesn't run well at Kansas, it's going to be a
Major red
true,
flags.
what the hell happened to this team? Are they
Yes.
going to make it out of the round of 16, let alone the round of 12? Darlington was a decent run for him. Kansas, I think, will be a decent run as well. I think we're probably ready to drop down to the C's. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah. All right. I think I'll go with the Hendrick double dip here. Throw the 9 and the 48 up there. Obviously,
Yes, great call.
you can
Great
throw
call.
comments on either of these guys. Again, they're just risky because Chevrolet could be the third of three in manufacturers here. And these are non-playoff Chevy guys. Hendrick obviously has got the 5 and the 24 in the playoffs. They're more consistent at these tracks. Chase Elliott obviously has been all right and has had a win here. Missed Vegas, but 8th in total speed ranking at the other tracks like this. Bowman missed Kansas, but the total speed ranking. And Kansas, one of his favorite tracks, typically runs up front here, runs well here. It's just that inconsistency with both of these guys, still potentially lingering injury effects. They don't have the playoff bursts. It's harder. Jeff Burton talked about this on the broadcast at Darlington, is it can be harder sometimes to get these non-playoff teams motivated. Obviously these guys, they ran well in the latter part of the year, but not well enough to point their way in. There were consistency issues there. They both haven't run as much because of their injuries as some of these other guys this year. So I don't know that you can put them above C for most of the rest of the year, but I do think at the beginning of C is probably where these Hendrick guys should fall out.
Yeah, I think Chase Elliott's a little bit of a bargain this week, honestly. Like you look at some of his recent finishes, it hasn't been that bad. 8th at the Southern 500, the Coke 400, he's finishing 4th. Obviously, as the disaster Watkins Glen runs out of gas there, but then second at the Verizon 200 in Indy, and then Michigan. Finished 36, terrible day for him, but actually had top 4 speed that day. So I think Chase Elliott could be a contender here, a sneaky guy at his price tag. So I like both those calls for you. Man, Ty Gibbs, throw Ty Gibbs up there. I bet Ty Gibbs heavier than I ever had in my life coming here in the spring, and he actually was very, very good in the spring. Finished terrible, but he was top 5. He was a top 5 car early in that race. I think he finished the first stage in 6th. So I really like Ty Gibbs at 7,600, kind of right in that Bowman Elliott tier as well for you, Elliott.
Yeah, I can't complain with that. Obviously the last of the real quick Toyotas. And, I've kind of cooled down on Ty Gibbs. Maybe part of that.
You were hot. You were hot on Ty Gibbs.
Yeah, I can't complain here putting him in the high C's. I think this is the good spot for Kyle Busch too in the 8. Obviously California is a bit bigger than these places, Auto Club, but ends up getting the win there. He's been on and off at these sort of tracks. 11th total in the series, 5th at Charlotte, 9th in the spring here at Kansas. Again, the Chevrolets, I just don't know, but I feel like Rowdy at the C tier could be a good bargain there. I don't have his DraftKings price in front of me. I'm sure maybe it's a little more than I want to pay, but also that's why he's in the mid-C tier.
Yeah, he's inflated, 9,600. I can't pay that for Rowdy. There's just so many better drivers down. Like I'd rather pay 78 for Bowman, rather pay 8,000 for Chase.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the issue. Kyle Busch, when he's on, but when he's off, he's off. Had a good finish last week, put it together, but it hasn't been great for him lately. All right, let's go Ricky Stenhouse Jr. here. What's that?
I said interesting. I don't hate it though.
Let's go D's though. Unless you have anyone else for the C's, I think Stenhouse belongs down here in the D's. You look at what Stenhouse has been doing lately. It hasn't been great. However, he did finish 12th at Kansas in the spring, 14th and in fastest late in a run. He's a guy who he can get hot, man. And at the price tag you're getting him, a guy who also had top 10 speed at Charlotte. I like what Ricky Stenhouse Jr. can provide at 7,300. Man, he's right on that cut line. Like he's got to go these next 2 races.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for the 47 to advance, but I'm certainly not ruling it out. I think I'll throw Daniel Suarez up here behind him. I should have mentioned this with Bowman too, but we saw that incident last week with the both of them where they both just let their emotions get into it too much.
Yeah.
Both were having good runs. Both were punching up from what they probably should have been running. They both were fighting for track position, 50 to go. Both got a little too hot. Both ended up junked in the garage. Letting emotion control you that much here late in the year with cars that, they're not playoff cars. You've wanted your season to go better. I get it. It's frustrating, but for Suarez, tied for 5th in the total speed ranking at Michigan, 14th total in the series. an interesting enough guy, but probably not somebody who's going to be running up front.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's the same with Michael McDowell, right?
Yeah.
Michael McDowell, 5 out of the last 7 races here at Kansas, he's finished in the top 20. So he is getting better at Kansas as we progress, but just hasn't had a lot of speed on these intermediates this season. He's also still very much in that hunt, so I think he is going to be ultra competitive here as he tries to get his way into the top 12. But I think Michael McDowell is going to be low rostered at 7,100, so kind of right there with Stenhouse. I like him a little bit less. Anyone else here in D's for you? I think we have. I think we've gotten through most of the playoff drivers here, actually.
I think so. Nobody stands out here that's not on there. I'm a little tempted to put the legacy cars in D, but I think that might be a bit too much of a reach. Any opinion?
I mean, Eric Jones has been hot, man. Eric Jones continues to outrun the equipment. We saw that last week at Darlington. Great call by Rod. Rod was really, really high on him there. So I think Eric Jones you can make the argument for. Does have a top 5 in one of his last 7 races here. Overall, this isn't one of his best tracks, but he does have 5 top 10s and 14 outings. So yeah, I think that's fine. And I think like, especially over on Fan Tracks, look at the number 42. He's about a $5 price tag, and he's going to get you a lot better than some of these other guys out around that range. I also think Eric Almirola, he was a guy I targeted last week in some lineups, Elliot, and we'll throw him in the Fs. And Almirola did not bite me too bad last week, honestly. And 7 top 10s here in 23 appearances. So right under that or right around that 30% top 10 rank. And I can mess around with some Eric Almirola again. Like, this is the time of year where I feel like Eric Almirola is always a little bit of a value. 6,700 for him. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, certainly no complaints there. Almirola is a consistent F, and what could be his last ride here. I never know with Almirola. Sometimes he's leaning toward retiring. Sometimes he's like, oh, I'm coming back. I don't even remember where the last time he were.
Whether he's retired or whether he's driving, baby, Smithfield will be there by Eric Almirola's side. That's for sure.
I'm sure they will. But yeah, with the legacy guys, Jones outrunning his equipment. Jones has got to be one of the most excited people in this garage to get 2023 over and get back in a Toyota ride that will hopefully have more factory support, hopefully have them running better. John Hunter Nemechek announced in this 42 car for next year when they switch to Toyota, Carson Hocevar has been running well enough that he very well can end up with a cup opportunity, even if it's just in the good old Spire 77. Rick Ware is hiring competitive drivers. Why can't Spire hire him too? Corey LaJoie sticking it up there. I'm almost tempted to go with like a little triple whopper action here with a couple of these Fords.
Go for it.
I'll skip them for now. Give you another pick before I do that. I'm going to put AJ Allmendinger here in the Fs. Congratulations to them having their first child, him and his wife. Better than I thought in the speed rankings here. 20th in the series. Again, nothing that screams out at me, but nothing that screams I shouldn't be ranked here. Allmendinger. Regardless of what his plans are for next year, not sure if he's staying in Cup or going to go hunt trophies in the Xfinity Series again. Whatever he ends up doing, for him to come back, be full-time in Cup again, not embarrass himself, and put out a fairly decent season for a young team. Props to AJ Allmendinger, because we may not get the chance to do it again this year. Props to AJ, we'll say he did it. Got the Cup win, got back full-time in Cup. Good work, AJ Allmendinger.
Yeah, good on you, AJ. Good on you, man. Like, he didn't get the win at one of the road courses like we wanted to see, like we bet on a couple times, but like on these intermediates, man, he's been very, very serviceable, especially for the equipment he's in. So yeah, I don't mind the AJ play there. How about a guy we don't talk about a lot on this show for good reason? Austin Cindric, throw him up there.
I'm shocked.
Yeah. Well, last year I really loved Austin Cindric. He was winning us a lot of money. This year he lost me some money in the beginning, and I got off that train early. But 19 average finish here. Right now among actives, 19.0 is the exact number if you're looking at it. He has 11th place finish here in 4 starts. So I think Austin Cindric, he's getting a little bit better as the season goes along. Like, it's not the 35th and the 32nd place finishes. It's not been great, but I don't mind Austin Cindric at the price tag here of 6,200.
Yeah, again, one of those picks that's not sexy, but should bring you some more value than some of these other guys here. Some other guys I think are worthy of F. I think Austin Dillon, Chico, and new contract extension for Harrison Burton.
Again,
these are guys that I don't think will embarrass themselves. You may see them end up falling ass backwards into stage points. probably going to run 17th to 27th, but that's not terrible if you're able to pick them up at a bargain in the back end of your lineups.
Yeah, I don't mind any of those plays. I really don't think I can rank anyone else though, Elliot. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like I know there's quite a few drivers out there left. I don't want to go. I don't want to touch Sheldon Creed. I don't want to touch Ty Dillon. Like
No.
I think Sheldon Creed is a very above average Xfinity driver, and I think that is like his ceiling for his career. Like I hate to say that. Like maybe he can be a low end Cup guy, but I just haven't seen it yet. And man, I'm gonna miss BJ out there this week. So not interested in those two guys. Any interest from you on the rest of the board?
No, I think these are all guys that are perfectly content with them being unranked. Creed's in a tough spot. Same with Austin Hill, RCR Xfinity. When RCR Cup has their guys locked in, they're basically waiting to see, after next year, does Austin Dillon decide to step down and become, president of racing operations at RCR or something like that and give them one of the rides? Do they extend to a third car? Who knows? But it's nice to see those guys getting some Cup experience. Austin Hill running in the 62 car a few times and Creed getting the opportunity in 78. It'll be good. I don't think he'll embarrass himself. But again, it'll be one of those things that it's just not fantasy relevant. Neither of the rest of these guys. Justin Haley basically just running out the days with Colleague, I think. Corey LaJoie's feel-good story is completely dead.
Oh, terrible, man. Like Corey throw Corey on the board. Can we throw Corey? Like he did get 20th here. Okay, maybe not. I don't know.
I'm not down for it, Seth.
He did get 20th here in the spring, but yeah, you are right, man. It was a great story. We were hot on Corey LaJoie earlier this season. Yeah, and the 15, the 51 have like showed us things at times, but I think just them switching drivers so much is like really kind of harmed the fantasy upside there.
Yeah, but I mean, they're another team, with Colleague, we're basically looking toward next year. With Spire, we're looking toward next year. Rick Ware, we're looking towards next year, just to get some more upside. Again, flipping drivers all the time and actually having guys with potential. I mean, no knock to Yaley because he's put in some runs there, but he's at his potential. This is his potential. A guy who can run a back marker and not embarrass himself and get a consistent good run or good qualifying spot once in a while that outperforms the team. When they have Haley in there and whoever they get to drive that second car, I think they'll be a lot better off. Maybe Corey LaJoie will improve with somebody who's better than Ty Dillon as a teammate next year. I think another one that we have our fingers crossed for fantasy.
Yeah.
Another guy in there because Ty Dillon just has none. Ryan Preece, I mean, I'm on both sides of the coin last week. Badass for running, but also like, dude, do you really need to run? He was like, all week, he was like, man, I'm okay. The whole blood vessel thing in his eyes looking crazy has happened to racers before. But then he goes out and it's just a non-factor running in the back with the Ware cars and with BJ. So it's like, dude, did you really have to go out there and do that? Was your job really at risk? I don't think it was. But, I also get the badass angle. He's a racer. If he feels like he's all right, go out there and show up with your blood vessel bursted eyes and go out there and run in the Cup Series. That's an accomplishment enough. So props to him and glad he was all right after Daytona because that's the most scared I've been watching a crash since Austin Dillon flew into the catch fence at Daytona in 2015. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, and even the one right before that, Ryan Blaney hitting the wall, very reminiscent of Dale Sr. Rest in peace, man. But yeah, that was some pretty crazy shit we saw at Daytona a couple weeks ago. So glad Ryan Preece is out there. He won't be in any lineups. I think the only guy we haven't mentioned is Todd Gilliland. Just another guy like, hey, he's going to be back for another year. I think he deserves that here. Todd Gilliland has some sneaky upside at a lot of tracks. Kansas is not one of them. This is not a track to play Todd Gilliland. So no 38 for me here. I'm not really that high on the 34 either. So yeah, I think that about does it for the tire tiers, Elliot.
I think so. If you want to get a look back more specifically at these, we put out a column with them after the show. I forget if it runs Fridays or Saturdays, but in any case, it'll be out there in written form if you need to go and look back, but don't want to scroll through halfway through a YouTube clip. Totally understandable. We got it up there for you. We write it up. We select some drivers to really talk about and dig deeper on in the article, but you still get this full picture here. So definitely use it because obviously this is the running order. This is exactly how it's going to go. This will make you the most money. We're just being nice and grateful, giving it to you guys who are watching. So, be ready to put it up and win just absolute buku bucks this week in Kansas, right?
Yeah. We're gonna give you guys some other opportunities over here in the next segment. A little parking garage props.
So yeah, obviously our DFS is going to win you all the money you need this week. But if it doesn't, then we also dig deeper into the prop bets. Our Caesars, our Barstools, our DraftKings, our FanDuels even. We're picking through them. Rod's not here, so we don't have the beautiful values on Superbook or anything like that.
Yeah.
We got the best we can give you in Pennsylvania, and whatever. If it's in PA, it's probably in your state too. We're pretty well rounded here. But in any case, impressions of the books on my end, pretty basic for a track like this. Pretty much what I expected. Anything surprise you or anything disappoint you here?
No, I thought there were some values down the board a little bit, but this is a really tough time. Hopefully, if you're betting NASCAR right now, you've been betting throughout the season because it gets really tough around here. Like we know who's who, the books know who's who, and there's not a lot of offers, especially in matchups or groups with non-playoff drivers, Elliot.
Right. Everybody's focused on the main 16, and generally your odds outside of that are going to be rougher because rarely do you have years like last year where non-playoff guys sweep the whole first round. That's
Yeah.
If that ever happens again, I'll be shocked. So it's going to be those main 16, obviously, or even those main 12 if you want to chop off some of the guys you think are going to get eliminated. But there is value outside of that, and again, that's another thing we're looking for. And I guess all three of my outrights are in the playoffs. I thought I might have picked one out that wasn't, but who do you have in the outrights here to start off, Seth?
Yeah. Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, we're going back to the fucking well. 5-1, Denny Hamlin. We're going to FanDuel this week. First time of the season. We're hitting up FanDuel. You can also get him top 3 at Caesars for plus 130. Just dominated this race. Like, yes, it was a battle at the end between him and Larson, but when you look at the advanced metrics, it really wasn't, especially in the loop data. Number 1 average position, number 1 fastest laps, number 1 of percent of laps in the top 15. He ran 98.9, so almost 99% of laps in the top 15. Driver rating off the charts, 136.1. You go to the advanced metrics, number 1 in total speed ranking, green flag speed, and fastest late in a run. I know it's chalky. I know it sucks to lay 5-1 on Denny when we just almost had an 8-1 on him last week. But you got to follow the metrics here, and everything is pointing me right to Denny Hamlin this week once again. So I'm not going to fight it.
Yeah, I mean, Denny won everything but the damn trophy last week. Just the tough situation at the end there. And honest to God, get on him at 5-1. It doesn't seem super attractive, but if he goes out there and qualifies top 3, top 5,
oh, it's going to be like 2.5, 3-1. And I think one of the great things about Denny right now is like, he has this podcast and you can really kind of get in this guy's head. And like, sometimes you want to be in a NASCAR driver's head a little bit. Like he was cool as a cucumber after losing that race. Like I figured he'd be all pissed off, but I mean, he's looking forward. He's looking in the windshield, not out of the rear view. So I like that from my drivers, especially here coming to Kansas. One that could get dicey a little bit at times, but if he can get out in front, he's going to be smooth sailing. So I like Denny Hamlin. I have one more longer shot, but who do you like here, Elliot?
Yeah, with Denny Hamlin, I mean, there have been times where I've thought Denny Hamlin's the most annoying guy in the garage and the biggest asshole in the garage, but it is really cool to see that podcast. Then it helps kind of take that stigma away. What a guy does on the racetrack to win. And when you hear a guy go out and be able to explain that, I was able to sit in on the post-race press conference when I was madder and hell at him at Pocono for dumping 200 guys, but it was neat. It's neat to see a guy go out there and explain himself. So honest to God, they should start putting in these contracts even if it's only once a month, go out there, do a podcast, set it up.
Yeah.
Fans what you're feeling, get out there, get some good PR opportunities, get some good ad reads in for your sponsors. It'd be a hell of a lot of fun. And I'm sure he'll be happy that he's re-signed with Joe Gibbs Racing officially, which means 23XI also almost certainly has locked up a deal with Toyota for just as long to stay there. So all the off-the-track questions are answered now.
Yes.
It's on the track for Denny Hamlin. I mentioned it in the tiers. I went with both of the 23XI. Well, you picked up Wallace, but I'm high on 23XI.
Yeah.
I could have pulled a clip from the spring because I'm sure I was just as high on 23XI in the spring. Tyler Reddick is plus 900. Bubba Wallace plus 1,200 at Caesars. Those are both pretty attractive numbers, especially when you look at Hamlin plus 500 for guys that will probably be running just as well as he is, top 5 to top 10 all throughout the day, if not running up at front all day. These are going to be guys to watch. I really like both of these numbers for 23XI because it would not surprise me at all to see them continue their hot streak at Kansas and put one of them in victory lane.
Yeah, I have been flirting with going back to an outright on Bubba Wallace. I did it last week for the first time in a while. I think I was on about a 35-1 last week. So 12 doesn't feel as nice, but he deserves it here. Like he deserves a 12-1 number or less, in my opinion. we touched on it earlier, 3 straight top 10s here for Bubba Wallace in the spring, number 3 in laps in the top 15 in the pack, number 4 in driver rating, led a couple laps, number 4 in speed ranking, green flag speed, and 6th best speed late in a run. And Bubba Wallace is just predictable. He is just predictable now. Like, we expect him to run good at Darlington. We expect him to run good at these comp tracks, the Vegas, the Charlottes, the Michigans of the world. And he has for the most part. So I don't like, I'm on top 5 right now on Bet Rivers plus 180 for Bubba. I haven't got down the outright. He might be someone I wait for after qualifying, just because he doesn't light up the room in qualifying. But I don't mind either one of those bets, Elliot. I think those are very calculated ones.
Yeah, and I mean, just how can you deny the speed of the Toyotas in this next-gen package? So my bit of a longer shot, obviously not a longer shot with how he's been running, but he's a plus 1,500, Chris Buescher to win. He's been at the Oval. How can you not at least take a sniff at that?
And Chris Buescher is another person I've been flirting with, trying to get on my betting card somewhere this week, just because, like, his metrics didn't pop for Darlington. He has not been good at Darlington really up until last week, and had a fabulous run. Great run for Chris Buescher. And I think he's showing this on a lot of tracks that we haven't seen before. So I think almost when you're betting with Chris Buescher right now, you have to throw some of those metrics out the window, because that's why I couldn't get behind him here for the outright personally, just because it hasn't shown up. But it didn't show up at Michigan earlier this season. It didn't show up at all these other tracks that he's won. So I don't blame you for that. Like, Ellie, I really like your card so far. Like, I don't blame that outright either. Some of the momentum matters in NASCAR, especially later here in the season. And I think, does anyone have more momentum than Chris Buescher?
I don't think so. And that's part of it too. Obviously these metrics, these speed rankings, these things that guys like Chris from Flag Hunting do, where they have these entire Excel spreadsheets. Who's going to be fastest at this track based on everything that's happened here and everything that happens here and everything happens there, and who runs fastest here, who runs fastest there. That's all great. That all helps. We love that because usually it's right. But you got to factor in watching them with your eyes. They don't run the races on computers. They don't run them, not anymore, not since COVID. They don't run them on computers.
Yeah.
They don't run them on paper. They run them on the racetrack. So I factor that in a little bit every single week, is who's hot? Who do I have that gut feeling from watching NASCAR for 17 years, just like a lot of these other fans out here? Who's going to run well? And Chris Buescher, I can't argue with that until I see him put out 3 or 4 stinkers in a row, which in that case would get him knocked out of the playoffs. And I don't see it happening from him this season. But I'm on the Chris Buescher train until the ball drops New Year's Eve and the NASCAR season's already done. I'm on the 17 car, and I like him to at least get in the top 10 or be running up there almost every damn week.
Yeah. And he has really led this Ford camp. We haven't been betting on a lot of Ford drivers beside RFK in the last couple of months, to be honest. But this is the week that changes for me a little bit here. I'm going to get it down with Ryan Blaney at 22-1 on FanDuel. I think that's a very generous number for a playoff driver, a guy who's performed well here in the past. And I touched on it earlier when we were doing Horizon Forecast. Qualifying matters at Kansas. One of those tracks that it really matters. He's number 1, the average starting position here, right around 10.3. And in the spring for Ryan Blaney, number 4 in laps in the top 15. He was consistently up there. He wasn't running top 5, but running top 10 most of the day. And when you look at some of these other comp tracks, number 6 in the comp tracks for the total speed rankings, including being the fastest car at Charlotte. So I think there's a world out there where we get a little more speed from Blaney this time around at Kansas. He was a solid driver. He was a solid car at Kansas earlier this season. I think he's going to crank it up a notch. So I like Ryan Blaney really, really for the number 22-1 at FanDuel. And if you're looking to bet him, but maybe don't want to go in on the outright, plus 110 at Caesars for a top 10. That screams almost like Bubba Wallace did to me last week. I bet my house on that one. I'm going to be honest. I really, really like Ryan Blaney, at least for a top 10. Don't go bet your house on it. I'm just saying that. I am a little cold lately, but I like Ryan Blaney a lot this week. So top 10, plus 110 at Caesars, FanDuel 22-1 as well.
Yeah, Seth, you guys just moved into that place. Don't bet the house on a Blaney. But I do like it there. 22-1 is a really good number for a guy like Blaney at this place. And certainly can't argue with those bets. I would expect to see the 12 car run pretty well. But again, hinges on qualifying. And it could be a good number to get down on the 22-1, because if Penske goes out and lights up the speed charts, if it is, an RFK and Penske dominate and end up taking 6 out of the top 10 or something crazy. Well, they couldn't take 6. If they take 3 or 4 out of the top 10, Fords take 6 out of the top 10. It could be a number that changes. So again, that's the boogeyman of pre-practice and qualifying bets. Is sometimes you get really good numbers or you miss really good numbers.
Yes.
Sometimes you bet on a guy at a bad number, goes out, qualifies 2050, you can get him for, half price theoretically on race day. So
that's why we're here on Thursdays to hopefully get some values for you guys. Elliot, I've talked a lot about my placement props. I'm on Bubba, I'm on Blaney, I'm on Denny. Who do you like in the placement props?
Yeah, I mean, changing the show to Thursday, just think about if we were still doing this Tuesdays, half of the betting cards wouldn't even be out yet. So, again, shout out to everybody who devotes part of their Thursday night to watching us. In terms of placement props this week, I've got a couple long shots, but my main guy is Alex Bowman. And, for you, all of you who hate hearing me talk about Bowman all the time, this is probably the last time this year that I'm laying some coin on him. But the numbers are good here, and the odds are good as well. He's plus 400 for a top 5, plus 125 for a top 10. And Bowman, he runs well at Kansas. It's one of his favorite tracks. They always have speed on the high-speed intermediates. And the last time that, the Bowman fandom and the watching it with my eyes affected the way that I looked at the numbers was Indy Road Course, where I think I put him in the Ds. He was just kind of ignored. And I said, hey, stay off of Bowman. The numbers look good, but this team is snake bitten. He's going to run poorly. Runs top 5 all day, ends up with a 4th or 5th place finish there. I think it's going to be a good top 5 to 10 day for the 48 car. He's going to be one of those sneaky guys that you're like, oh, how's he up there? I think it could be worth that, especially at that good of plus money for both the top 5 and the top 10. A couple of long shots. The legacy guys, I mean, I put them in tier D, but for top 10s, Eric Jones at plus 500. I don't hate that. Hocevar, if you want a big time long shot for a top 10, is plus 900. And I wasn't so sold on him, but I do have Ricky Stenhouse Jr. top 10 at plus 550. He's a guy who needs to recover, needs to make up some points to get in the round of 12. I won't put it past this team to do it.
Yeah, I didn't even catch that number on Stenhouse. That's very interesting. I might be considering that here as I round out my card. And then Bowman, another guy I wasn't really focusing too much in on here, but just in his last 6 races here, Elliot, 5th best in average finish of 8.8, 4 top 10s in that as well. Like, you're getting a guy who honestly has a career, nearly a 50% career top 10 rate at plus money, 125. Yeah, that sounds really good. Honestly, I think you might be. I haven't bet Bowman, I think, since pre-injury, so I am interested there. But yeah, I think you put out some good ones there. Let's go to head-to-heads and groups. Is there anything that stuck out to you in that market here, Elliot?
The matchups that I saw on Caesars, of course, they have a limited matchup. You mentioned this, that they're really only going with playoff guys. Nothing was super duper interesting to me there. So more 23-11 love, though. Group E on Caesars. The 45 of Tyler Reddick is plus 290, the longest odds, over the 19 of Truex at 165. Obviously, that'll be tough because Truex is going to rebound or whatever. But most of this is Toyota, so it's just who do you like as the best Toyota. So the 19 is a plus 165. 24 William Byron is a plus 250. And Christopher Bell in the 20 is also a plus 290 with Reddick. So this is a group where it's going to be all front runners. It's going to be guys who are top 10 all day. But the 45 ending up ahead of all of them, again, not something that would be a surprise to me.
Yeah, I mean, he's done it the last couple of weeks, so can he do it again? I can't bet it personally. I just hate Tyler Reddick right now, man. He really
extraordinarily inconsistent, even though he's got the speed. I can't blame
him. And when he doesn't, when he's screwing up, when he's not screwing up my betting card because I bet on him, he's screwing my betting card because I didn't bet on him, and he's taking out freaking Ryan Newman and making Harvick go down pit road and get a penalty. So yeah, fuck Tyler Reddick, but I appreciate the shout out nonetheless. I got one matchup here that I'm laying some serious coin on, probably 2 units. Chris Buescher minus 108 over Rowdy minus 120. I think the wrong guy is favored in this matchup, folks. Chris Buescher won Michigan last 6 races, 3rd, 1st, 7th, 11th, 1st, and 1st. Rowdy last 6 races, 11th, 7th, 14th, 27th, 36th, 37th. Number 17 in speed at Michigan for Rowdy has just not really had the speed. Number 3 at Michigan for Buescher, and number 11 at Charlotte as well. So it wasn't just a fluke at Michigan. I really think that there's a good chance that Chris Buescher crosses the line ahead of Kyle Busch here. I'm kind of fading the number 8 this week, Elliot.
Yeah, and I mean, not only fading the 8, but picking up on the guy who we just lauded so much praise on as the hottest guy in the garage. How can you not go with him? Especially at about an even bet, minus 108. That's only a little tiny sip of juice, even if you lose. So don't hate it. Don't hate it for sure.
Yes. Let's go ahead. Let's crack this thing out with some specials. I got only one for you on my card, and it's two guys. Like whenever I see one of these boosts of two guys I was already betting on solo, and I can combine them for a little parlay action over there at Caesars, I'm gonna. Bubba Wallace, Ryan Blaney, both top 10, 3-1. I love this bet. I got suckered on it last week because we were gonna hit it with Harvick and Byron as well. However, we didn't. But I'm back in it here on Caesars. Might have to do another deposit after last week. Those fuckers cleaned me out over there. But I'm back on it here, Elliot. A little Wallace and Blaney action. The boys, the brothers, the friends.
Yep. Yeah, and like you said, you're already hot on both of these guys. It's real nice when they give you those parlay options. Another one that I see, and these ones, these are almost the same ones I've been picking because they're just so tempting. They always have guys who are going to run up front. It's a combo Xfinity Cup. John Hunter Nemechek to win Xfinity, and Martin Truex Jr. to win the Cup races, plus 2,300. And again, I feel like we get suckered with these a lot. Anytime you see an F1 one with like Verstappen and somebody, obviously Verstappen and F1 takes care of it, and we just don't see it from the Cup side. But John Hunter obviously going to be feeling good back in the Cup Series, and what will hopefully be a more competitive ride than both the 42 has been this year and then the 38 was when he was in Cup in 2020. And with Truex in the Cup Series, we know the Toyota's going to be fast. We know Truex is going to not want to run like shit. Certainly don't hate it. But if you're not feeling the Toyota, I'll let you comment on this before I go to the next one because I'm shifting.
Well, look, JHN is the favorite in the Xfinity side of things right now, plus 225. And the number you're getting for Truex right here as well is not the best either, plus 550. So if you want to play Truex, if I am off Truex this week, just after what I saw last week, but all the underlying metrics, you pointed them out earlier, they still love Truex coming into this race. So if you want to bet him, this is almost the avenue I'd be going.
Yeah, whenever you get these odds boosts, they're great. And I have a couple of odds if you don't like the Toyotas this week. I don't have Chevrolet odds because I don't like Chevy. Ford to win is plus 400. There's always value there. It's always Chevrolet is like plus 100 something, or even Chevy was minus to win at the Indy Road Course, which was ridiculous. And I mentioned it there. It's always usually Chevy and Toyota, and then Ford's lagging behind. Toyota and Chevy, Ford lagging behind. Obviously, we've seen Fords win races. We've seen Fords win races, even if it's only at 17. We've seen Fords win races lately. So plus 400 for a manufacturer to win, why not sprinkle a little bit on there? And if Buescher's not your jive, or if Penske's not your jive, there's an odds boost on Keselowski to be the top 4 to plus 375. I don't like that one as much, but again, one of those deals where if you want to go against the grain, against the favorites, that's not an awful number to me.
Yeah. Two more I just wanted to touch on. I have not put on my card, but I saw you had one noted, and I was also intrigued by one. I just wanted to talk out here. If the listeners have any thoughts as well, I'd love to hear what they have. Race to go to OT, plus 250. That's a crazy offering. I feel like we don't see a lot of races, I feel like, at Kansas go to overtime, but a pretty decent number. And I also saw stage 2 winner 3-1 to win this race. So that's a little bit intriguing as well. Again, Kansas is one of those, it can get dicey at times, but for a lot of times, like the car that's controlling the race, I feel like wins it. So 3-1 felt like a little bit of value. Thoughts on that and race to go to overtime, Elliot?
Yeah, I mean, those are two other ones that I always look at them every week, and I'm like, damn, we see a lot of overtime, and we see a lot of guys dominate races. Last week, had Hamlin not had his pit problem, and if he had held off, the Harvicks and the Reddicks and the Larsons of the world, he won stage 1 and he won stage 2. So he would have paid off both of those bets for you. It does happen. It's just so rare that it does happen, which is why you get those numbers there. It's just realistic enough to suck you in. Same with the overtime. But then you get down to toward the end of it and you're like, shit, man, this guy's way back in 20th, or this thing ain't going to overtime unless somebody just makes a dumb mistake. So they're tempting. I always like a little sprinkle on those, but definitely not worth throwing a whole lot on.
Yeah, I think you talked me out of that one then. I'm kind of tapped out here, Elliot. You got anything else for the people?
No, I think I'm about tapped out. A few more on the sheet here, but just talking about them through the show, I'm kind of off of them. And, we've talked about this a little bit before. there's saying good bets, and then there's oversaturating with a lot of bets. I think
Yes.
oversaturating is definitely a mistake that nobody wants to make. And I'm guilty of that on cards too. Rather than throw a fair bit on 4 or 5 bets I'm really confident in, I'll sprinkle a little bit on 15 bets and end up coming out with nothing, or pennies on the dollar, or what I could have made. So I like what we've talked about. I think we're probably good with that.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Easiest way to support Elliot and I here and everyone at In Between Media is give us a thumbs up if you enjoy this type of content. Subscribe to the channel. Even though there's football on right now, also don't tell me in the chat what's going on. We got this shit DVR'd. You know that. But easiest way to support us is subscribe to the channel. Come back, hang out with us again. We're live every Thursday night, 8:30 p.m. through the rest of the season. And we have fantasy football podcasts coming out regularly on the channel. PGA when that's in season as well, even some of the swing season content as well. So a lot of stuff popping off for us, Elliot. How about it, man?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's the bread and butter. The NFL is back. Chiefs Lions playing right now, obviously. Full deck of cards on Sunday. Good luck with those fantasy teams, obviously, and hope you're listening to Seth and the guys on the football podcast on Tuesdays. And again, thanks for tuning in, either sacrificing part of your NFL Thursday night if you're a fan, or going with the double screens here. Have the NFL on mute, put us on your phone or your laptop or whatever, and roll on down the back road with us, because there's still a lot of money to be made on NASCAR. And as we keep rolling in the playoffs, things are only going to get more exciting. They're only going to get more higher stakes, and we're only here to try and make you some more coin here on the back road. We'll see you again this time next week.